Yo, what's up? This is Grady Jarrett with the Atlanta Falcons.
This is Sean Alexander. You're listening to the 3-Point Conversion. Let's go.
This is from upstairs. We tried to get them to put the fedora and the whole deal on there, but they couldn't do all that, so they got the bow ties on there, man.
Thanks, appreciate it.
I know you're probably trying to stay slim for your suit next
week.
Yeah,
I've been.
You got a little cake, so you can share with your friends.
Yes, we'll do that.
How's everybody doing?
Was that gluten-free, Terry, or just kidding?
We did, yeah. So we did it one more time for Mike, but from now on, no more. Is anybody gluten sensitive? Any allergies we need to know about here?
No, bring on the port.
Everybody good? Yeah?
Good with the port.
Ready to get started? All right, guys. So I want to start out by really addressing, we had some issues, and you know, when you have a little bit of adversity, that's when it really shows who people truly are. And so we got the storm came in yesterday, lights went out last night, and then they didn't come back on until about 7:30 here. And so there's a lot of people behind the scenes here that do a lot of work and put in a lot of work to get us going every day on a daily basis that really don't get acknowledged because they are behind the scenes. But in coaching operations with Scar and Rob, in operations with Spencer Treadwell, Brandon Ruth, C. Mays, Daniel, those guys, they click in and become superheroes when adversity hits. None of them slept. They're constantly doing everything they can do to get us going. We're out there about 7 o'clock, and we're going to have practice, old school, no power. We're about to get going, and I look over, and Jake Stroot, our head video guy, who's the best in the league, is like MacGyver. Raheem told him we didn't need film, but he's going to figure out a way to film practice from every angle. That's just the type of people we have. So very, very appreciative of all the people that put in all that work behind the scenes on a daily basis. Very thankful to our owner, Arthur Blank. Again, I know you guys are going to get to see it, but the weight room, the locker room, the cafe, I know those things aren't fully completed, but we have a top-tier facility. So the way he continues to invest in this team, and we're very appreciative of him. And I would say we're very excited. Now we're 7 days into camp. We're second padded practice day. We got a physical, competitive team right now. Every position, every phase, every side of the ball, there's a lot of competition. So we're very, very excited about that. The work that all the players have put into it. And yet 365, 24/7, we're always trying to improve. So we're going to do everything we can do to improve this roster. So we're thankful, we're excited, and yet we're going to stay aggressive and keep trying to improve this team. With that, I'll take any questions.
Yeah, Terry, we hadn't talked to you since the tampering violations came down. How did y'all process those, and how do y'all plan to move forward, maybe do things differently?
Yeah. So like we said in the release initially, that we take full accountability, and we appreciate the league's process. We went through the whole process, and we're very cooperative, and we take full ownership of the penalty. And we don't take that lightly. We take it serious. We have to look at everything we do and making sure that we're operating at a high standard in every area. So we'll look at areas that we need to adjust, make changes, and make sure we don't end up in a situation like that again.
And I was talking to Kyle about, you know, I was like, hey, just look back at what the roster was and what y'all have now, and to reflect on, 3 years of roster building. You know, could you do that and entertain, where y'all are at, some of the peaks and valleys you had to go through to get to where, people are saying y'all got a competitive looking team in the through 5 practices in the preseason?
Yeah, you truly are at a different point right now. And look, we have a lot of players, not saying anything negative about the players that were here before, because a lot of those guys set the standard. Just for example, I'm at football practice a couple nights ago, and Deron Harmon lives here. His family lives here. He's got some sons playing football, and so I'm talking to Deron Harmon, and obviously Deron was here years ago, and Deron was a part of that. He's not with us anymore, but he was on the tail end of his career, but he had an impact on Richie Grant. He had an impact on AJ Terrell. He still has relationships with those guys. So there are players that were here before, they're no longer here, but really help lay a foundation. But we are at a completely different point. It is stressful right now looking at the board, because knowing that we're going to have to cut this down, and we're going to have to keep 53 and then obviously 16 on the practice squad. When you're really looking at it and you're counting them up, and you're looking at all these big, powerful, athletic, pretty defensive linemen, and thinking about how we're going to really cut this thing down, how we're going to figure it out. So It's a good problem to have right now where sometimes you look at your roster and say, okay, we're really going to have to go outside. We're still looking outside at the other 31 teams. Trades, we're still looking. We just had a workout, and you know, we're constantly looking. But I would say compared to 3 years ago to where we are now, it's going to be really challenging to cut this roster down.
I asked the fans for questions. They want to know if you had an update on AJ Terrell, contract negotiations, and how many defensive linemen are going to make the 53-man roster.
It's funny how you say you ask fans for questions. It's like when one of the kids come in and they say, well, hey, London wants to know this, or you can just say if you have a question, man, you can ask a question. So AJ, we don't discuss contracts, and I know our fans understand that. Those are things that we're not going to discuss, so we'll keep that private with AJ and with his representation. Obviously, we love AJ. Everything he's about, he embodies everything that we're about as a team, and obviously you see him out there making plays every day. So we love AJ, but we're not going to have those conversations. And what was the other one, Led?
How many defensive linemen will be on the 53-man roster from Keyshawn Vlad?
Keyshawn, yeah, that's a good question. Now, but I would say this is how we look at it. What you don't want to do, Led, is box yourself in and say, okay, we're keeping a certain number at each spot. And what you want to do is keep the best players. And when you have players that are versatile, that we do have some defensive linemen that can play outside linebacker, they can stand up, they can do some different things. So we don't want to keep a player at another position that's a lesser player. What we actually do is, at one point, Led, at the end, an exercise we do is we're going to stack just the players, to take out the position, and let's stack who are the best 53 players we have. And because you always want to make sure that you're not cutting a player because of a position surplus. We'd rather go really heavy at a position. So I wouldn't put a specific number, but it's a great question that he asked because it is very challenging when you look at it.
I know GMs usually have like a 2 to 3 year plan of what they want the team to look like. Do you feel like the team is starting to come together with what you envision?
Yeah, we're very, very excited about where we are right now. And it's not just the actual players and what we're seeing on the field, but man, the culture here right now. I mean, we have real, true leadership here, and when you look at the Grady and David and Jesse and AJ and Kirk, and we have so many leaders, Jake, Chris, leaders that they're multipliers. They want to make people around them better as well. So what we like about the team is the balance that we have. We have the right veterans, but then we have a lot of young players that are, again, you look at the D-line position, and you can't help it. Every time Grady, so yesterday, Rook does a one-on-one, and then right after, when you're watching the tape, the next play, you're watching the next, and in the back of the frame, you see Grady in the back working with Rook on his hand placement. You know, and you see that at every, but you see that at every spot. So when you have those veteran players that you feel good about and the right balance of young players that are really helping them grow, that's what you really get excited about. And we're always looking multiple years out, so you want to make sure you have players that are going to really, really be impactful, help you right now, but you have those developmental players too, and guys that are going to help them continue to develop.
And then you spoke about the staff, how they came together behind the scenes with everything with the storm, but then you see the players come out and the coaches come out and they do what they did today. Like, how proud of you?
Says so much about. I'm telling you, it's almost like when Raheem and Scar, they were sitting down. Again, this was about 7:15, and they're going through it. This is what we're doing, old school practice. We don't need film. We're just going. And they're so excited about it. And I'm not joking. I feel like when the lights came on, they were kind of let down. Like, oh, the lights are back. It's easy. And all this stuff that Jake was doing, all the stuff that but nobody complained. Nobody complained. The players are in. They're getting their treatment that they need. They're getting ready to go, and they're getting ready to practice. Like, no one complained about it. So I think that's what's really impressive about this team and the resiliency we have.
You mentioned something at Seconder about playoffs to the fans. Is your expectation, do you believe that this could be a playoff team this year?
It's a nice hat, Allison. You were rocking that hat. You keep it on when you come inside, too. You know,
my hair's a mess underneath.
Look, our expectation is we all have high standards because of what we see out there, right? We have a lot of belief in this team. We never put specific numbers on it. We just want to get the most out of this team. Like, that's what, when you go into every year, what you want to know is that we got the most of everything. We got the most of the team. When that adversity comes, which it is going to come, we handle it the right way. We have a resilient team. We have a tough team, and we're getting the most of it. And you want, again, for our fans, like, you want to represent our fans the right way. You want them to be proud of this team. You want them to know that whether it's a home game or whether I'm going through all this travel and these headaches to go see my team on the road, they know that when I come in that stadium, we have a good chance to win that game, and they can go away proud. So that's what we want. So how that looks, exactly how many games or whatever that is, we just know that we have a lot of confidence in our team, and we want to make sure we get the most of it.
Do you feel that from the fans, so especially selling out the tickets, the season tickets so early? I mean, do you feel a different excitement around that?
Really appreciate our fans. Like, love our fans so much, and the passion, the unwavering support. That's why it's cool. You hate what you do hate. If you say one negative about right now, you do wish that everything was done and we could have our fans out there on the hill every day. And, you know, I could tell Arthur when he came in yesterday, he was disappointed because the fans aren't there, and he knew they couldn't be here because of the construction. But still, you want them to be able to be here to see their team, and that's so important. And then it affects practice. It does. When we're out there at second year, there's a little bit extra when the fans are out there, and so that is important to see them. But very appreciative of them doing that. I have no doubt that we're going to have the best home field advantage because we're going to give them something to cheer for, and I know the passion that we already have. And then so when our team is up and playing well, and when we have those loud, crazy fans, it's going to be a hard place to play.
Terry, when you put 3 years of work on,
You couldn't get a seat, Wes?
No, I understand. It's easier. When you put 3 years of work into building the team, and then you have an offensive and defensive systems change, like you've gone through with Raheem and these guys coming in, how do you gauge it from your chair after OTAs, after mini camps, after first week of training camp? How do you gauge it now? Like, what's your part where you see it, and where do you want it to be 5 weeks from now?
Yeah, good question. Here's the good thing, and y'all just talked to Jimmy, y'all talked to Zach several times, and so you can see the type of people they are. When somebody hadn't met Zach or Jimmy or obviously Raheem, and they asked about them, I tell them they're the type of guys that they're good football coaches. They would be successful in anything they did because of the way they think. So there is a system that Zach has and uses because he believes it's effective. There's a system that Jimmy has and he uses because he believes it's effective. But also there's versatility, and you're gonna have some flexibility. And so you have your system and you have a clear vision of what you're looking for in every area, but yet you're going to figure out ways to make sure you get the most of your players. Like we talked about the defensive line position, there's not going to be Jimmy's not going to come in and say, okay, we can only have this many D-line and this many outside linebackers and this many. He's going to say, man, we got all these big physical dudes. I'm going to figure out a way to make all of them good. So I'll say all that to say is that we have a system and the guys are implementing it, and we know there's some differences, but when you have flexible, adaptive players like a Zach Harrison, where he's put on some weight and he's added some weight to play the position he's going to play right now, but he's a good football player. He's big, he's powerful, he's aggressive. AK, right? It's a little different now, and AK is doing some different things, but he can rush the passer, and that's what it's all about. So I would say where you worry about that a little more, Wes, is if you have rigid coaches that only want this, and that's where you see good players getting cut or getting moved on from. But I would say our coaches, we know they're going to get the most of what we have here.
So in finishing, real quick, is there, I got to be careful of what I want as opposed to what I need to complete this team? Yeah,
I guess just in terms of if a coach wants something specific that fits exactly what, right. Yeah, I know what you're saying, but it's these where Raheem as well, they see the total picture, and so there's such good communication. And so anytime there's a player that could be available via trade or whatever it is, we sit down, we talk about it, and we really go through the process. Okay, this is going to be the fit. This is how he fits in what we do, and yet he's so impactful that I'm going to adapt and I'm going to do this to make it work for him because he's that good of a player. Or it's a player that, you know what, he's not going to move the meter enough for us to adjust things. So you can have those kind of conversations because there's such a good relationship throughout the building. Kyle and Tombo and Ryan and Ross, they do all a good job communicating with them, and there's such a good communication regarding that. But I would say that if we go get a player, regardless of the specific system he's coming from, if he can make an impact for us, then we can do it.
To follow up on that, I mean, even in the same idea of this, we're talking about role clarity as well, and that's something that Raheem has spoken quite a bit about. I'm curious, you're talking about this communication piece and the flexibility and the novelty of it all, but at the end of the day, how have you seen this staff, whether it be this front office and also this coaching staff, be very clear in what the expectation is for each guy in their role?
Yeah, very It's been excellent because you have those communications as a staff, and then it filters down to a player to and then the player performance. Everyone knows, everyone's on the same page in what we're talking about. So players know that, okay, Big Eddie Goldman, hey Eddie, we want you to come back at this weight, and this is the position that you're going to be playing for us. It's very clear, and everybody can set. So everyone knows what the expectation is. No different if you're talking about a coach or a scout. There's very clear communication with those players. But again, from Raheem to the entire coaching staff, they're all such good communicators in that we're all on the same page. So we're all saying the same things to the players. So there's been a very clear, direct communication in that way, and it's been good.
Terry, you sort of touched on this, and how can I explain my question well enough? But obviously, you make the decision with Michael, and you're thinking maybe we go get an edge rusher, but you don't, and you're trying to get back and you can. And then in free agency, it would look like you went and were able to get like an impact edge rusher, and obviously Calais didn't come back. And I'm curious, but obviously, one of the things you're kind of saying we're going to be stronger here, we'll be weaker here. And can you speak a little bit to the, I guess the calculus of how you kind of position saying, okay, we may not be as strong on the edge, but if it, I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but we're better here, flexibility, all those things.
Ken, absolutely. And we do look at it like, the whole, we're talking about the whole front seven, right? So, yeah, it'd be great to, a specific outside backer that's an impactful rusher. It'd be great to add a guy, but we look at it as a whole, and we like our front seven. But again, we talk specifically about outside linebacker and AK and Zoe Carter and Trice and Smith, and we got a lot of good players, D-Lo, that are really competing out there. But then you look at in the interior, and Grady, David, Rook, you keep Zach, TQ, Eddie. There's a lot of big, powerful, athletic dudes. But then also you look at the inside backers, and where you can say that you have certain guys that are more so specifically. Nate's an old school thumper. That's what he is. But then when you look at guys that's the second one, guys. That's 2 strikes. But when you look at guys like Troy and Caden, they can line up outside and be really effective. And so we have a lot of versatility, I would say, up there. That doesn't mean if the right player comes available, we can add them at any position. But we do look at our front seven as a whole as very strong.
How do you see, when you kind of break down, you're talking about roster construction and everything, with the new kickoff rules, how that evolves what you guys are looking for the bottom turning of a 53-man roster?
Yeah, so it's a little bit TBD, and we have had with Marquise and Stephen King, and they've done a really good job. They've been anticipating this, so we're very prepared for it. But there is a little bit of TBD where we have a plan of exactly what we want to do and how we want to attack it as a return and in terms of the coverage. But we got to kind of see and feel this thing out of how it's really going to go. So there hadn't been a major. We're building the team the right way. We've always emphasized the kicking game in those areas. We want big, strong, physical players that can go play in the kicking game. But there's going to be a little bit of TBD with that.
Roddy told me he was coming over to talk to you about getting a pass rusher yesterday. How'd that go?
Roddy? That's so fun. We didn't specifically talk about pass rusher.
Oh, he told me that.
He told you he didn't bring it up. He did. That's another one of those you're saying this guy was going to ask. But you see how he does that. He always wants to be the good guy, so he makes other people. Man, I love Roddy. And I heard Coach saying this, and I completely agree with him. What you loved about Roddy is that dude was a tough, competitive, physical player. Everything he did, the way he approached it. And it's cool because we have those guys. And we do have them when you look at the Drake Londons and the way the receivers compete and play physical, and Roddy brought that brand, and so those guys gotta again, I heard Coach say they gotta carry the torch in the right way, but always love Roddy. We were actually talking about his team the whole time, so he didn't say anything about that.
Terry, I know. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah.
We would have asked Raheem, but we don't get him. Steve Wilkes was here, secondary, and Rosie just checking out stuff and cool with Raheem or something.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, he's been here the last 2 days, just kind of going around, and we love Steve Wilkes, really respect him. We actually interviewed him, and so that's exactly what that is. You know, when you're not have a job to be able to come and look at it from a bubble. It's funny, I was teasing him during practice because it's hard when you're back there and you want to jump on the field and coach when you're a coach. That's what he does, and so it's probably hard for him not to be getting his hands dirty out there, but just have a lot of respect for him, and Raheem's great about that, opening his door to coaches.
Terry, unfortunately, injuries are a part of the game.
Yes, sir.
But say in the secondary we have a couple of injuries. Are you willing to come play?
No chance. No, I did. So I was telling some people the other day, I D'd up Raheem on the beach when we were on a trip this summer. Yeah, I D'd him up. We got out on the beach, and Zach was the quarterback, and Zach kept missing me, so there was no completions. And Zach would overthrow me, and Raheem would turn around and do the DB celebration like he did something. So the problem with it, I hurt my toe when I was out there. Nobody knows about it, and I'm still limping around from my toe. But no, there's no way I can go out there and play with those guys.
A little turf toe?
Yeah, a little turf toe.
Terry, I've got kind of a high-level question along those lines about you just building relationships or developing these relationships that you have with the coach, with guys like Ryan and Kyle. It seems very intimate. I was watching the Giants HBO series. It's you got Dable laying on the couch in the GM's office, just hanging out. And it seems like a very different working relationship than I have with anybody, because it's just so much deeper. Can you just kind of talk about what that experience is like? Yeah, it is. You really become like brothers and sisters, and you have sisters, you have brothers, and but you become so close that you really are a family, and it's such a unique where everything we're doing, all you think about 24/7 is making this team better. That's all you think about 24/7, and so that's the same thing that whether you're talking about, like you said, the coaching staff, whether you're talking about you're always thinking about. Again, Raheem FaceTimed me this morning at I don't know if it was 4:30 or something, and he FaceTimed me, and so I'm in the bed and I'm like, you don't FaceTime at that time. If you call me because there's something, and obviously he's all excited about how we're going to practice and everything. Maybe it was 5 a.m. but whatever. He FaceTimed me, and so but it's just normal for him to do that, and but you really do feel like you're family, and all you're doing is trying to do your very best to make this team better, and you kind of hate that the fans don't always get to see the behind the scenes, and so all what goes into everything, and so you appreciate sometimes when they can kind of understand what really goes into it, but I would say you really feel like a family.
Terry, I know that maybe each season has its own individual thing, but kind of bouncing off of that, it seems like this year, at least from what we've seen so far in the training camp, it seems like that, I don't want to call it intimacy, but just the relationship with all the coaches and everything and the players, it seems to be almost deeper, at least from my perspective. Do you feel that way, or is that just something that? Yeah,
like you said, every team has a little bit different, is going to have a little bit different feel to it. Every year, every season is completely different. What really sticks out to me right now is you have, it's all about the team, and when I say our leadership is exceptional, it truly is exceptional, because there's a difference in a leader that is doing everything he can do to be successful. But if you see a Jesse Bates and the way Jesse Bates operates, Jesse wants everyone around him to be successful. So he's trying, he wants to help all the players around him grow. And when I know y'all see it when you just watch practice, you're going to see it with him. Again, you're going to see it with Grady. You're going to see it with Kirk. You're going to see, you just look around the roster and you really see these guys. They're really trying to help the guys around them grow, not just because it's not just about the football field. It's not just about the technique. It's about building true relationships and really trying to help. Like Ray, I really feel like Ike is Ray's dad. He's when you see them talk, they're it's a real thing. It's a real relationship. They truly love each other. It's not even coach was, he put something up to make fun of Ray and Ike puts his head down. It's like his son out there, but they really do love each other. So you feel a lot of that on the team. And I would say it's the locker room we have and the leadership we have, but we have players that are very intentional about helping players around them, which really stands out.
Terry, you talked about it a little bit. The consequences of the tampering investigation. I'm curious, does that change the draft strategy for this upcoming year? All the super far outs, does that change how you guys view picks, prospects, positioning needs, things like that?
No, it didn't. It didn't. We compartmentalize. We separate. We say, okay, we're focused on the draft. Again, we participate. We do everything the league needs us to do, and then we're just focused on the draft. But you kind of had to compartmentalize. But to answer your question, no, it didn't.
Terry, you've talked about it a little bit in bits and pieces that
you feel like you guys are headed in the right direction, you like where you guys are out. How do you measure that just in week 2 of training camp from your perspective?
Yeah, I think it's, Maria, I think it's hard to measure. You know, it's not, I think right now you're just looking at it like, okay, we just had our second padded practice, and then we're getting to we got to practice at the stadium Friday, then we're preparing. You kind of got to just stay in the moment and handle the challenges of the moment and continue to progress. I think you have to do that. You don't want to look too far out. You just attack every single thing that you're doing right then. So I wouldn't say there's a way to measure. You do kind of get a feel for your team. I would say, though, because we see it out here against each other, and when you go and practice against another team, you can get a feel. There's a cool part about those scrimmages, and we're going against a lot of respect for Chris and Mike and what they've done. That's a fast, athletic team in Miami. So when you get to see your team against some other people, and you get a feel when you're seeing them in those one-on-ones in those different areas, so you can kind of measure some things, seeing against some different competition. But I would say you don't look too far ahead. You just stay in the moment.
Mr. Blank mentioned yesterday more optimism. For you entering year 4 now, from roster to staff, what feels new that would maybe create that feeling for him, where he is, he has that level of optimism where he said he hasn't really felt that in a few years?
Well, I think when you go out there and you see Kirk Cousins with the first team, just lighting it up, and then you see Penix come in with the next team and he's lighting it up, and like that room's a little different. Just being completely transparent, that room is different, and that makes a difference. But it's very easy to be optimistic when you look at this entire team. I mean, when you look at the most important position is football. The most important position in football is quarterback. The most important position in sports is the quarterback. We feel great about that position, right? And then, so what's the next group? Okay, you talk about the O-line, right? That permeates your entire team, your entire roster. When you see, I just saw him walking down the hall, Big Chris and Big Jake, and when you see those dudes flying around, Chris and Jake and Caleb killed a bear this summer, has a rug from it. You see Caleb
with his bare hands.
It was him, his dad, and a brother, but he killed a bear this summer. That's just what he does, right? So you got Caleb and Dahlman and the young bucket left guard, and when you see those guys and the way they compete, and I stack them against anybody in the league, so when you feel good about that, and again, I keep talking about our defensive line, but when you look at that position, the improvement at the quarterback position, when you look at the front and on both sides of the ball, it's a big man's game, and when you have big dudes coming in waves, like that's significant. So I think it's, when you look at the team, again, we got a long way to go, but when you look at the team, it's easy to be optimistic.
Anything else?
Who'd you bring in today?
Who we bring in today? We worked out some tight ends and a quarterback.
No, is that real?
Yeah.
Being honest? Yeah.
Yeah, worked out some tight ends and a quarterback. You usually bring in somebody to throw for it, so we worked out some tight ends and a quarterback.
Was
good.
Was Calais someone you tried to re-sign, or how did that go?
What'd you say? Are you talking to me?
You said who to ask. Who said ask this question?
Yeah. No, they tried to sign Daniel Hunter and Free.
We had great communication with Calais, and again, I don't want to get into the specific, our communication with him directly or his agent, but we talked to him and his agent, so I wouldn't say if we, but man, he did some good things for us last year. He's kind of like one of those guys, like I talked about, Deron Harmon. He did some things. You still feel Deron Harmon's impact on this team, and there's a lot of players like that. Calais is the same thing. We still feel Calais, because just like I'm talking about what we see with Grady and what we see with Kirk and what we see with Jesse, how they make it intentional. They work hard and they're very deliberate about helping people around them, right? That's important. It's important for all of us. I learned from that. Sometimes I can get too caught up into what I have to do and say, okay, let me teach and help this guy develop, this young guy, young male or female. Let me help them too. You have to look at that. So Calais was very intentional about that when he was here, looking at the ways that he helped AK and Zach and all those guys. So we're still feeling the effects of him, but won't get into that if our conversations were.